I'll call the meeting to order. Were you properly noticed?
Meeting has been noticed according to law.
Roll call.
President Johnson.
Here.
Trustee Harding.
Here.
Commissioner Morath.
Here.
Commissioner Stefan.
Here.
Commissioner Hayes and Letterhouse are excused, and as of today, Commissioner Olson has resigned.
Yeah, so we're looking for another member. So if anybody has suggestions or nominations, please get in touch with me. You guys are here for something on our agenda. I don't want to go through. Do you want to do citizen participation, or do you just want to speak during your agenda items? We'll keep it moving then. So we'll skip citizen participation. We'll move on to approval of minutes from the April 13th, 2026 meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
Okay, questions or discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. On to ordinances and code amendments. Item 1, conditional use amendment application for an outdoor commercial entertainment use to increase the number of special events allowed, include the use of a tent in the parking lot for shade in lieu of the previously approved pavilion, and to amend the indoor and outdoor sale and consumption of alcohol and an associated site plan amendment on the LD's Barbecue property located at 2511 Main Street, bearing tax parcel number RA 5011000001, Leon Davis, the Barbecue Pit LLC applicant, Brad Jones agent, application 2026-06. So I will open the public hearing, and I will have Orrin, if you can walk us through your memo here and what the applicant's looking for. Applicant is here with us, and they can speak, and we are jam-packed for citizen commentary, it looks like, on this. So go ahead, Orrin.
So going back through the history of the property and some of the past approvals that have taken place there, the original approval was for the restaurant. The CU for that was amended when the outdoor patio got added, I believe. So there was an amendment in 2018 for a CU for a restaurant with an outdoor patio. There was another amendment later in 2018 for the sale of alcohol as part of the restaurant operation. There was another amendment in 2022 for outdoor events. And that gets to the heart of what's being requested today is an amendment to increase the number of outdoor events allowed and to amend the indoor and outdoor sale and consumption of alcohol as part of the conditional use. The outdoor events or the bike nights have been happening on Tuesdays. They have these throughout the summer, starting in June and going through I don't know, at the end of September. Okay. So the first part of the ask here is to increase the number of events. The conditional use previously capped the number of events, and that was limited to 15 per year. They're now asking for 19, so you want to add 4 additional events. That does include a non-bike night event, which would be around the 4th of July. I think it's July 3rd, where you're looking to have another event. So that's the first part of the ask, is to increase the number of events from what was previously approved, which was regulated by the conditional use. The second bit is to make some changes to the liquor licensing and thereby the premise of where alcohol can be served and how it can be served on the property. I think originally the CU, as I mentioned, was approved to allow alcohol consumption as part of the restaurant operation. That was limited to prepackaged stuff inside the restaurant. It wasn't ever formalized through the CU how the alcohol sales during the special events would be handled. And so we're trying to provide a little more clarity on that aspect of the use. And then also the petitioner is requesting to be able to have mixed drinks served in the restaurant, and then also be able to serve, in addition to during their special events, outdoors on the patio, alcohol as well. So for their premise description, they'd like to have the outdoor patio area added. Dennett, could you bring up the packet materials? I think it's the last page that has the highlighted version of the plan that shows the purple boundary and the yellow boundary of where they intend to have alcohol sales. Just a little further, a little further. There we go. Okay, so, and we'll get more into the proposals for the site plan amendment that accompanies this, but as far as the alcohol sale component of this, which is directly related to the conditional use, the purple boundary is the area where they're proposing to contain the service and consumption of alcohol during the outdoor events. And the yellow would be the area that they would like to, during regular business hours, be able to serve alcohol outdoors, if you will. They're proposing to contain it to the patio area. This particular outdoor area doesn't have a fence enclosing it. What it does have are functional bollards with chains that are around most of the outdoor area. What they're proposing as far as serving drinks outdoors for both the outdoor events and just during the regular course of business outdoors moving forward, they have a drink trailer, and they want to be able to pull that up as shown on there. I've got some, there's a picture in Foth's staff review of the drink trailer on page 3 of Foth's staff review. I've also got a couple pictures that Mr. Davis provided showing the cart actually, or the trailer actually parked where they intend to use it, which I'd like to pass around and let the plan commissioners look at. He just provided those today, which I think is very helpful to give folks an idea of how that would fit in that space. Mr. Davis said that there would be approximately 18 feet remaining between the trailer and the closest parking stall. So there would not quite the full 24 feet of two-way access, but quite a bit of space, definitely enough for an emergency vehicle to still fit through. So while that's coming around for folks to look at, again, part of what we're trying to accomplish here is to have the conditional use and the liquor license coincide. We want them to be referencing one another so that there's no question as to what was allowed and how things can proceed as far as the alcohol sales. So in the packet, there is a draft conditional use order, and some of the changes that I made, this would be the 4th amendment. Up at the top, the use now states restaurant with an outdoor patio, the indoor and outdoor sale and consumption of alcohol, and outdoor commercial entertainment events. So previously, the 3rd amendment of that CU didn't call out each of those individual uses that were being allowed through the CU. It just kind of said the restaurant with outdoor patio, and then it, I think it mentioned the pavilion, which was kind of an original site plan portion of the outdoor event use, but it didn't really reference the outdoor event use. So I want to make sure that we're memorializing the alcohol sales and the outdoor commercial entertainment events as part of the actual CU. So we're just calling them out all at the front. Again, the amendment is to increase the number of events and then amend the indoor-outdoor sale and consumption of alcohol. So that map that we previously looked at was the areas where they'd like to be able to serve. So that would be probably an exhibit of or something that helps explain the premise description moving forward. If you look at condition 3B, I've added that these are initial conditions of approval. So these conditions need to be satisfied prior to the issuance of the conditional use permit. So it would be subject to the village board's approval of a Class B alcoholic beverage license that includes an outdoor licensed premises area. So, Danette, did I use the correct term? Is it a Class B? Is that the correct? Okay. I think that works then for a non-educated person such as myself in those matters. So, and then if you look at condition 4H, it says the following terms and conditions apply specifically to the outdoor sale and consumption of alcohol. H, Roman numeral 1, notwithstanding any area description shown within the conditional use or by reference, the use allowed by this conditional use permit is further restricted to licenses premises area as specifically approved by the village board in its alcoholic beverage license approval. In the event the village board approves an outdoor alcoholic beverage license premises area that is outside the area approved by this CUP, the limits of the CUP are not thereby changed. So you're proposing an area where you'd like to serve alcohol as part of this CU process. That has to be kind of ratified, if you will, through the alcohol license, the liquor license, and that's at the village board level. So we don't really have any control over that here as at the plan commission level. So if something different gets approved, we got to come back and amend this. That's obviously not what you're proposing, but if that were to happen, that's why that condition is there. And then H, Roman numeral 2, in the event of revocation of non-renewal of the permittee's alcoholic beverage license, this CUP shall automatically terminate without notice or further action required. Essentially, your liquor license gets revoked. We got to amend the CU because you can no longer serve alcohol. And it says the CU includes that as one of the uses that we're approving as part of this. So we would want you to come in and we would either come up with a new plan for that or take it out. One of the two things. So again, at condition I3, I've noted that outdoor events would be limited to 19 per year if the plan commission is amenable to that. That's the way that it's set up. And then the rest of the conditions are really a carryover from the last third amendment, if you will, of this that originally approved the outdoor events. I do want to speak to the way that this impacts the site plan a bit. Oh, Danette, yep. Oh, I'm just looking, that was all from the conditional use, the draft conditional use order. So, but I'm going to pivot to the site plan. So if you,
Page 26.
if you want to just go to both staff review. Yep. There you go for the site plan. Yep, you got it. All right. So again, this site plan amendment is accompanying the conditional use permit. One of the main changes here, the pavilion that was approved as part of the original outdoor event conditional use back in 2022 was never constructed. It got a zoning permit, it got a building permit. Those approvals expired, and due to Mr. Davis's health issues, they didn't build it as they originally intended. And so what they're proposing is they'd still like to provide shade to their patrons during these outdoor events. So they are proposing a tent, temporary tent that they would put up for these events to provide the shade. It would be across from the stage. So the image on the first page of the report shows the view of the stage, which would be approximately where the tent is on the site. I went out, we did a site visit. We looked at the area they want to put it. It is close to the road, but it's entirely on their property, and they know that they had to bring it in a little bit from the edge of the parking so that the guy lines or whatever's going to hold it up are on their property as well, not in the county's right of way. So they're aware of that. They've kind of baked that into their plans for where that would be located. So it's approximately 20 by 40, 800 square feet. It would take up about 4.5 parking spaces along that north lot line. So again, that kind of replaces, if you will, the idea of the pavilion, at least in the short term. The bike nights themselves, the way it was described to me at our site visit, you guys park your box truck across the main driveway for the restaurant so that vehicles aren't coming in that, but bikes could still come around it potentially. One of the things that we discussed at the site visit was if you're going to have folks gathering across from the stage, kind of in the parking lot area, can we keep traffic out of that space? So it's just a pedestrian space. And you guys were amenable to doing that, which is great. So you're gonna cordon off that area with cones or something comparable. And folks won't be able to drive through that area essentially. It'll just be for pedestrians for the party, which I really like. That alleviates my concerns of having the tent out near the road and potentially, blocking somebody's view turning in of where those people would be. And so the tent won't meet the zoning district setback, but it's a temporary structure that's going to get taken down. And so if it's okay with the plan commission as part of this, where they're proposing to locate it, it would, nope, it's on the property. Because of the area that we're cordoning off for pedestrians, there would be about 8 motorcycle spaces that wouldn't be able to be used during the event in front of the, but that's the front of the stage anyways, so you wouldn't want them blocking your musical guest. That leads to a conversation about the overall parking. So one of the previous conditions of approval were that the number of patrons at the event was limited to 3 patrons per 1 parking space. So essentially that's what needs to be provided. Looking at the site, doing an analysis of how much parking is striped currently. If you take away those 8 motorcycle spaces, there'd be about 75 total spaces during outdoor events. And Mr. Davis drew on the site plan. Danette, if you want to scroll down into their submittal materials, it's the certified survey map image, which is probably one of the last couple of their packet materials. There we go. So all the striped parking is on the east portion of the property that has the restaurant building itself. The western portion that was combined via the CSM that was previously done is unstriped, but Mr. Davis is proposing to use it as it's shown on this plan. So those temporary spots would be about another 53 unstriped spaces on the west side of the property. So if you add those together, you got about 128 total spots that would be available for outdoor events. And applying the standard of 1 parking space per 3 people means that event attendance would be limited to about 384 people if all the parking was handled on site. And so one of the asks tonight is that the Plan Commission determine whether that number is appropriate and that a condition is still appropriate, which again is a carryover from their last conditional use permit approval. Are there any questions or discussion on the parking?
Did we have a discussion with the chief about any parking along Energy Drive?
I did forward all of the submittal materials to the fire department and the police department, and neither had any comments.
So if there is a need for some temporary parking on the west side of Energy Drive, sounds like neither chief has a concern.
They didn't bring it up.
Okay.
I didn't directly ask the question.
Okay.
Does CarQuest let you use their parking too? Does CarQuest let you use the? Okay. That's okay.
And the events go till 9 o'clock, right? Okay.
So again, the driveway on that west side of the property would still be open during the event. And again, that's for mostly regular vehicle parking on that side. Um, I do note in here that the south driveway on the east side, so this would be the far south driveway, Danette, is blocked with boulders currently. So that's not open anytime to regular traffic. Right. And the last item again is just the drink trailer, which we passed around the image of where that would be parked. I kind of tried to describe that in my staff review. So again, it would be on the east side of the building. That would be the outdoor bar space, if you will, during events and during regular business hours as far as the outdoor consumption and sale of alcohol is concerned. So Plan Commission should determine whether the use of the drink trailer to serve alcohol outdoors and its proposed location are appropriate. And then you have the materials the petitioner passed around and then the images and both staff review for that. So there's some conditions of approval that are all pretty boilerplate. We're linking the approval to this property and stating that the uses be consistent with what's listed in the conditional use permit and the plans that were provided for this meeting. Are there any questions or comments from the Plan Commission? The petitioner is present and able to answer any questions.
Relative to training for people providing the alcohol, you guys would do that part of the permit, right?
Yeah, so that's under our existing, yeah, they're all licensed for that. Yeah.
Perfect. That's all.
I would just add that in the packet materials, you guys had stated that there would be a max, at least 6 people for these outdoor events. And then, again, these are 5 to 9 Tuesdays, starting the first Tuesday in June.
I guess the only question I have is, how do you actually police the people as far as walking on and off the property with alcohol?
Other questions? Any concerns from you guys about the conditions laid out? And, so if we approve what's here to go to the board, are you good with that or?
Yeah, so that's how everything is laid out, subject to the conditions which I went through and you would still have to get your liquor license and the premise description of that updated. The other thing I want to point out, we talked about this at our site visit, but the way that the past approvals were structured, I've carried it forward. The approvals are to the property owner, specific to the property owner for the C, for the conditional use that's for that covers the events and everything. And so that language in the current CU that references that. Let's read it here. Says that the authorization for outdoor events is personal to the current property owner, i.e. non-transferable. So that's how they've been set up previously. So we're carrying that forward in these. So you know, you're the property owner, you're the registered agent for that LLC that owns the property. So it's personal to you. So if you sell the property, there'd have to be an amendment to the CU for the new property owner.
But if he sells the LLC, or if he transfers ownership stake in the LLC to somebody else and the LLC retains property ownership,
That would still be, that would potentially be okay.
okay. So it's only if
Because it.
title changes.
We're issuing it to the LLC who's the
Yeah.
property owner.
So if the title on the property changes, it's not, the CUP is not transferable.
Correct.
Okay. And is that typically how we do that, or is that just historical for this property?
That is historical for this use.
Okay.
That's not our standard procedure, but again, that's what the conditional use process allows you to do, is to have specific conditions like that for uses.
Okay. Are we free to amend that here, or would that have to be something separate?
No, you could propose an amendment to that here.
Okay.
Again, I wanted to note that that's how it had historically been done. So again, that was the last three, and I carried it forward and wanted to just bring it to everyone's attention because we did talk about it at the site.
Leon, do you want it transferable? Yeah, so if you sell the property, so right now it's under your LLC. So if you sell the property. Okay, so that's what you're asking for?
And so at that point then, it'll need to be, I'm trying my best to get everything signed over before I die. You know how it goes. There's so many things that come into play.
Other questions from the commission? Okay, anything else you guys want to add or say? We don't, I mean, we don't really have any other businesses putting on these amount of events, you know, I would say that you're up there competing with the chamber, you know, with the number of events and stuff. And, you know, that's a nonprofit. They're using public space, right? So, I mean, you're in a good spot in terms of, and you're doing a Tuesday night, right? Nobody's coming to complain to us, that sort of thing. I mean, I know it seems bureaucratic, but it's, like you said, one bad apple like gets in there, or we have somebody else who they want to do a similar thing and they're not as, you know, forthright with their patrons, and, you know, and then it's like, well, you know, you let that Leon guy slide, then, you know, so that's really kind of the reason why we go through this, to kind of dot all the I's and cross all the T's. And I know it's very verbose. But appreciate your patience. All right, then if there are no other questions or comments from anyone, I'll close, oh, go ahead. Oh, go ahead.
Well, once we do approve all this stuff, is our liquor license available for him to do this event? Or do we have to change it or?
It would be an amendment to their existing liquor license, correct? Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, there,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
But yeah, there's no other changes needed there. Just to match the language of what Orin's talking about in terms of them having a license. It's not, they have it, or yeah.
Do we need to make a motion for the transfer of the ownership?
Yeah, so I would say once I close the public hearing, if somebody wants to make a motion to approve, I would recommend the motion be to recommend approval to the village board, subject to the conditions set forth, and such that the CUP is transferable upon sale of the property. Right now, the way it's written is it's non-transferable. Did I get that right?
Well, for clarification, is just the events portion is how I've written it into the current CU. So the CU covers a number of uses, but it's just the event portion that I've said is carrying forward that portion of it. Because I didn't feel that really applied to the other portions of the use. It didn't come up in the CU for the outdoor patio. It didn't come up in the CU for the alcohol. It just came up in the 2022 CU for the outdoor events,
So the others are transferable, it's just the events is not.
as I have it written.
Okay. All right, so I think we all know what we're doing. We'll find out here. I'll close the public hearing. We'll move on to if there's a motion.
I'd make a motion that we approve the transfer of ownership for the events.
Yeah, before we said that motion's final. So we need to make a recommendation to the village board to approve or deny the application. And then with that motion, add what you said.
Make a motion that we approve the 3 items that Orin has identified. With the additional item to make the events transferable for the LLC.
All right, John's got a second. All right, John and John. All right, questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, very much. So it'll go to the village board for final approval on Monday, and you guys don't need to come to that. That will just be there. I mean, it'll be ordinances and resolutions. I don't anticipate any questions or concerns, especially since the Planning Commission recommended it. So don't worry about that. Once that's done, we'll issue the paperwork, and I think then you'll need to true up some of the liquor license stuff here with Danette. That would be, but you should be good to go at that point, right? After next Friday or next Monday, right?
Will the liquor license be on the same agenda?
The liquor licenses have already been approved, but we can amend his wording because the wording changes hadn't gone to the village board, but I can put that in with their topic as to what we're going to propose that includes what you've listed here in the conditional use.
I think that'd be a good idea. I just, because I've tied the issuance of the CU to that getting resolved, I want to just make sure that they're being considered at the same time if it's possible.
Yep, I'll make sure that's on there.
Okay, and then we'll get you an email after that and say you're good to go. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening. Excuse me, excuse me, miscellaneous business, item 2. Site plan and architectural review for proposed wood fence for the Climbing Tree childcare property located at 3147 Main Street, RXUP 00198, Colleen Anderson, the Climbing Tree Childcare and Family Education Center, Inc., Applicant, application 2026-08. This is for discussion with the Plan Commission here and is it possible action? Oh, an action by us, yep. Warren?
Yeah, this is in your purview for approval. So the petitioner is proposing a new fence. They want to enclose the additional land that they purchased and combined via the certified survey map that the Plan Commission saw last year. And again, that was a CSM that came back to us because it hadn't been recorded in the time frame that it needed to. So it had been previously approved and it came back to be reapproved. So essentially the daycare bought land to the south and now they want to adjust their fence line to include that new land so that the outdoor space for the kids is completely enclosed by a fence. The petitioner, Colleen, I spoke with her today. She regrettably was not able to attend. She has a sick child at home. She did pass along that the bid information that's in here from her fence contractor, AP Fence, is the proposal is not accurate. So as far as the linear feet of fencing, it's a little different in the most recent version. Bear with me a second, I'll bring that up. So in the version that she provided today, she said it would be 214 linear feet of the 6-foot tall cedar fence. That's the shadow boxed style. And 183 of the 4-foot, which is the picket style. So I think in the packet, I had 325 and 173, and now it's 214 and 183 for clarification. So that's the only updated information that I have. This would need subsequently a fence permit from the building inspector. That's where Colleen started, so she's aware of that. And then he let her know that it would have to come to the Plan Commission to get site plan approval. And that's how we got to where we are now. These gates will have locks on them, the gates that are being proposed, so that her staff will have access to let the kids in and out to go on their various field trips and whatnot.
So there's no request for like a vehicle access from Wetland Way there?
No.
Okay.
In conversation with Colleen, she said that they exit from that to get down to the environmental corridor for field trips for the kids to go walk around by the river.
Do they, are there any right-of-way or easement issues to consider here?
No, she's staying out of the right of way. She will have to be in conversating with Scott Johnson. You know, you can come up to the lot line, but not be directly on the lot line. So you can be right adjacent to it. And they'll iron out the final location as part of the fence permit application. But we do have a version of her proposed fence location that's on the actual certified survey map.
Yeah, I just saw it. It looks like there's some concern about some utility boxes. I'm assuming they'll call Digger's Hotline and.
That would be the responsibility of their contractor to make sure that they're not putting any post holes in
Would be bad.
any underground utilities.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the site plan for property located 3147 Main Street, subject to the following conditions, 1 through 11.
All right, questions or discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
I
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, item 3, discussion related to regulating the location of smoke and vapor shops. So John, I don't know if you've gone back to look at any of our notes, but this came up as a part of a conversation when there was previously that vape shop over by the hardware store, which is right across the street from the elementary school, and it's since closed, but now we wanted to take a look at what are our options for regulating those near schools, because a number of parents had raised some questions and concerns about that. So Warren's done a large amount of research for us, and so I'll let you kind of walk us through this.
Sure. So again, this was looked into at the direction of the Plan Commission at a prior meeting. The framework through which I looked at this, what's the legal authority? Legally, can we do this? Was the first question. So local zoning is granted under Wisconsin statute. It allows cities and villages to regulate land uses, separate incompatible uses, and protect sensitive land uses such as schools to promote public health, safety, and welfare. So that's the lens through which we're able to look at a regulation like this. So check that box. Yes, we have the legal authority to do something like this. How is the current zoning code handling this issue was the second question. So vape and tobacco retailers would currently be classified under indoor sales or service, which is a very broad land use category that includes any type of indoor sales or service. And that's regulated by section 510-42D, the commercial land uses. So I have the definition of indoor sales and service in here. Indoor sales and service land uses include land uses which conduct sales or display merchandise or equipment and provide non-personal or non-professional services entirely within an enclosed building. This includes self-service facilities such as coin-operated laundromats, and then it goes on to prescribe a parking requirement of 1 space per 300 square feet of gross floor area. Indoor sales and service land uses are currently allowed in the neighborhood business district, highway business district, central business district, and business park district as permitted uses. They are also allowed in the central business transition district as a conditional use. And the table of land uses would be the place to look to see all of that. So that is the current structure. So as far as the zoning and the business licensing, distance requirements from schools should be adopted through zoning regulations rather than just business licensing. Some communities do require business licenses for this type of use. Licensing ordinances may regulate operations and compliance, but only zoning is legally appropriate for where a use may locate. And so if that's the particular ask here, zoning would be the framework to accomplish that. So zoning-based setbacks are more defensible when they're applied consistently and supported by planning rationale. To reduce the legal risk, a school setback requirement should be adopted as a zoning code amendment, apply prospectively with lawful non-conforming use provisions, clearly define how distance is measured, and be supported by comprehensive plan findings related to youth exposure and public health. We don't have anything currently in the comprehensive plan to support that. Maybe some broader statements, but there really isn't a health section or portion of the comp plan as it currently exists. So we may want to amend the comp plan as part of an effort to do a zoning amendment for something like this as well. I think doing something where we're doing both of those at the same time would be my recommendation. Setback distances of 500 to 1,000 feet are what's commonly used and generally defensible when properly justified. So the other ask was to find a real world local-ish example if one existed. So I mentioned the city of Milwaukee has created legislation around this in the not too distant past, and the city of Brookfield more recently, which is the example that I provided. I figured that was a closer comparison than the city of Milwaukee, but in both of those communities, they have quite a few of these uses. And so that's part of what's precipitating their interest. You'll notice the GIS mapping in the Brookfield example shows all of the various locations in their community and then buffer zones of how their offset, or setback would look and what, what from their schools and or parks, which is another thing that they identified, would potentially conflict with the buffers associated with some of their existing businesses. So in their instance, the non-conforming allowance really matters because they would be creating lots of non-conformities as far as, because they have so many, so widely distributed throughout their city in the vicinity of schools and parks. So again, for it to be legally defensible, they recommend having that clause in there. So in their example, one of the most important things is to come up with a definition. So what they did was they created the smoke and vapor shop with a definition. They created a new land use that they then amended one of their zoning districts to allow. So in their case, they had a kind of pyramidal zoning where the B1, everything goes back to the B1 district. If it's allowed in the B1 district, it ends up being allowed in some of the more intense zoning districts as well. So they have smoke and vapor shops under the following conditions. And then they list the conditions: not within 1,000 feet of a school, not within 1,000 feet of a park. And they have a definition for that as well. Not within 500 feet of an existing smoke and vapor shop, and not within 1,000 feet of the entire parcel of land containing, and it's for some soccer fields. So apparently that didn't meet the definition of park, so they added it as something specific. And then they have the any existing licensed smoke or vapor shop, which is legally operating on or before the date of passage, and is listed below, may continue operation in compliance with their legal non-conforming uses section. So, and then they've got a very lengthy list because they've got a lot of these. Again, we're talking about maybe one that exists on the square, and but when you think about the tobacco sales, there's going to be more that come into.
Yeah, and that's going to be kind of like because you can buy cigarettes, you can buy tobacco at the grocery store. And so I don't know, from the edge of the school property there to the grocery store, I don't know how many feet that is, and you may not ever be able to say that you can't not sell cigarettes at the grocery store, but definitely, yeah, like new businesses. Now, true vape and smoke shops, I think there's a vape shop on the square, and then I believe the liquor store also sells there. That's right next to them. And then this would be gas stations as well. I'm sure, like you said, tobacco for all the gas stations that are in town, including on the square. But fortunately for us, other than that shopping complex there with the grocery store and the hardware store, that's the closest shopping complex we right now have next to a school. There's also not any churches near where these are currently occurring, because I saw some of that being called out about churches and parks and things like that. So I think this starts to become a different discussion if there's further development on the south side of the village. And so we really kind of have one area right now we're targeting, but we don't know how things will develop in the future. So
I also want to point out, I mentioned the comprehensive plan But also the Brookfield example here, they use some documentation as to the rationale for this. So they've got Public Health Law Center article regarding tobacco and e-cig point of sale. It says regulating retailers for public health. And they've got some other documentation as well to support their hypothesis that this is needed. So
You know, and you have as far as other countries going as far as saying people born after a certain date, just you can't buy it, period. You know, will we in the United States ever get that far? I don't know. But yeah, I don't think, I think the consensus among our residents from what I've heard is that they don't want kids to have access to this, and having it near these, you know, these schools where kids can walk and so forth is what they're not looking for. So the only other thing that I guess I had a question about is I did see one, let me go back to it. I saw one municipality, they had something like, it was almost like only so many for, who was it? Oh, Superior, 1 per 25,000 residents. Only one business selling tobacco, cigarettes, and vaping products is allowed for every 25,000 residents in the city based on most recent decennial census. How did they manage that with gas stations? Did they just say that then gas, I mean, surely they have more than one gas station for every 25,000 residents.
and I can't speak to the defensibility of that particular regulation. The only other place that I've seen that type of regulation is with the CBRF type residential establishments. And those also have separation distances from other uses like that. And the idea is that folks won't have to have an unnecessarily burdensome number of them based on their population, but I don't know if that's legally defensible. We may have to ask Attorney Gary.
And I'm not, I just thought it was interesting. I'm not sure I want to go, that seems like another thing for Danette to have to manage with her liquor licenses, that I'm not sure we're big enough to, I don't know how big Superior is, but I just thought that was an interesting approach, kind of like a liquor license, but then we run into problems with that, so. Other questions or comments? What do you guys think?
Well, if we don't do anything and then someone wants to put a vape shop in, then what do we do?
Yeah, I mean, right now, so let's say we have this conversation, we don't do anything. There's an open spot on that shopping complex over there by the hardware store, and somebody says, I want to try a vape shop there again. I can make it successful this time. We really, that's a commercial business, meets that zoning. We have no restrictions on it, right?
It's a permitted use in the HB Highway Business District, and they would get a occupancy permit through the building inspector.
So we really don't have any way of kind of saying, and I like the way you phrased it, Orin, like where this goes. This isn't that we're objecting to these types of businesses. It's about where they're located, right? So I think maybe Superior is getting closer to the what it is, not where it is delineation. But setting that aside, you know, is this something that we want to look at? And is this something that we want to potentially, do we want to take one of these examples, whether if it's Brookfield as, for example, to set some boundaries and setbacks and requirements and things like that?
I think it would be good because that way we got it set in place so we don't have to worry about it after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, from Brookfield, clearly there's a list of them that are legally non-conforming now that, you know, if they had done this 10 years ago, half those locations probably wouldn't have been able to be open, you know, so. John, any?
Have you, Has anybody taken a map and identified what the distance is from each of the schools? I mean, made a circular circle and say, okay, here's a circle, here's a circle, here's a circle, and the best way is 300 or 500 feet? Is that what we're looking at?
No, but that could be something that we do as an exercise. Should the plan commission want us to look into this further, we could do some buffering with the GIS and see how that would look.
John says 2 miles, and it might get you across the village. Yeah, I mean, I think let's start with, what is it? What was Brookfield's here? Was it 1,000? 500. Okay.
1,000 from a school,
1,000 from the school, 500 from Parks. Was that what it was?
not within 500 of an existing smoke and vapor shop.
Okay. Yeah, so I think let's, I mean, Brookfield seems the most well thought out and laid out here. It's fairly new, but let's just, to John's comment, let's just see what that would look like if we were to apply that here. And let's maybe have that discussion when ready, whether it's at the July or August Plan Commission. Hopefully we were able to have a couple of absent people here. And then let's take a look at it. And if that's something we want to go forward with, then we can start to draft up the comprehensive plan amendments and the ordinance amendments and things like that.
Sounds good.
And I guess just if anybody's watching this recording, like there's, I'm not aware of any applications or businesses that are, zoning applications here that,
As far as the state of the industry goes, I've had this conversation with Eileen and we touched on it at a past plan commission meeting, but it's not great for their industry right now based on state and federal regulations. There's a new registry for tobacco products within the state so just for the folks that are wanting to sell their product, you have to be on that list in order for your products to be able to be sold. And there's only so many that have gone through that process and are able to be sold. And that eliminated quite a bit of shelf space for these businesses that used to carry quite a few different e-juice brands. Not all of those have gone through that process or are on that list of things that are approved now. And so that's one of the things. And then, this is being looked at the federal level as well. So there's different regulations coming from different levels of government for these types of businesses. So a lot of these have closed. I think the Milwaukee regulations that came online were kind of in response to the peak of these, where they actually had them opening up next to one another, across the street from one another. They had a lot going on in Milwaukee that precipitated them coming up with a regulation. So overall, though, there's not a lot of these opening currently because of the different pressures that I've mentioned.
so from a regulation standpoint, if I wanted to inventory businesses in the village that are legally allowed to sell tobacco or whether it's smokeless or smoked tobacco or it is e-cigarettes or vape, is that something that they have to register or to have a license to do that with the state? Or is that just something that we would have to go, oh yeah, I know that they sell it, and no, I don't think that they do. Like I don't know. Like, does the grocery store have to maintain like a state license to do that, to sell cigarettes?
I was going to ask if there was a local license. Danette, is there a local tobacco license?
Our licenses are for cigarette, tobacco, and vape products.
Okay.
So it is issued at the municipal level,
Okay.
but they are limited to approved state products. Otherwise, if they sell things that aren't on that list, it's illegal.
Okay. And that includes like chewing tobacco, smokeless tobacco, not just cigarettes.
Our license encompasses all, and each applicant check marks which ones they'll be selling, so they may vary.
So then we would be able to come up with a map like Brookfield, like John was asking, and then kind of do those boundaries and see where that lands.
Yeah, if we got the list of
Okay.
licensed entities. Yep.
All right, well, thanks for the homework. Let's do some inventorying. So Dana, if you could help with that, and let's draw a map and see where we land. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right, I believe that was our last item on this evening's agenda. Let's see. Any other items that we want Warren to take a look at?
I did have the building inspector bring something up that I wanted to raise with the group. When it comes to the regulations around the maximum size of attached garages in the zoning code, attached, it doesn't specify, it says 70%, but it doesn't specify of what. And so it's just part of a table and it just says 70%. And so I've made an interpretation that I've forwarded to the administrator and the building inspector. I believe it's intended to be 70% of the ground floor of the building. And I can elaborate that on that in my, if I prepare something for you all on this topic, but I don't think it's intended to include the upper floors of a home. Again, that gets into the overall bulk and the character of the area. And I think it's intended that you have a accessory garage that is smaller than the principal building. So that you don't have all garage with a tiny living quarters attached to it.
I'm just trying to imagine the apartments with 70% of all square footage. No, I think that's a good call out by the building inspector. Yeah, so let's bring that back to let's just, I appreciate the interpretation, but let's clarify it for sure and get it down in the ordinance.
Okay. So I'll bring forward something so that we can discuss. Do you want me to go straight to the proposing some draft language?
Yeah, let's just go ahead and
stage?
propose draft language. That way we can move on that. That shouldn't be
Okay.
an issue.
Great.
Doesn't seem controversial.
It is, and again, it's providing clarity and what I believe is to what is intended. But when people are proposing something, it's nice to be able to point and say, see, the code actually says it. So that's why we want to add it in.
All right. Anything else for Orrin? Okay, then we will meet July 13th, and I will move to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, all.